no filter in sight. Jason's got the insights, always gets it right. Sean's the wild card with the laugh in the night. On FolkLOOR, they banter about the latest fight. FolkLOOR podcast, stories non-stop. Entertainment, gossip, and tech's new crop. Loud opinions, like a punk rock bob. Marcus, Jason, Sean, they never drop.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the FolkLOOR podcast. We are missing
Streaming wars and startup dreams. Jason's predictions like rapid laser
welcome back,
beams.
man.
Yeah. Oh, that was subtle. That was a nice fade out.
Yeah,
I
nailed it.
tried that time.
It's like when you trip over the cable at the church recital.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Well, welcome to another episode of the FolkLOOR podcast. We got an exciting guest coming up, Chris Shimojima, who we'll introduce later, but he's doing the new project Safe Society on lore.tv, and we really are excited to have him on. And so what's new with you guys?
Ooh, I think Jason, you should go first because you're always one doing exciting stuff.
I've been a world traveler. I missed last week because I was in Boise doing training teachers for high school, elementary school, high school, teaching them how to teach in a classical Christian way. And then before that, I was down in Dallas doing some training on how to start a school. So yeah, it's a world traveler these days. Small world, but
it
traveler.
really makes sense that you lead off the Jason's trivia lesson and that you're also a teacher's teacher. It's all coming together and makes sense to me now.
It is. I am one whole person that is always me. That's
That was super deep.
That was a lot of theology in there.
Could you
that
flip
we'll
that
break
into
down
some
on a different
haiku?
podcast.
Do you like origami?
I am one whole person.
That's
No,
nice.
it wasn't quite haiku. Wasn't
That's
quite.
nice. Hey, for those of us at home that need to know more, what's classical Christian? Is it like punk rock Christian or opera Christian? What's classical Christian?
Classical Christian is a kind of education where you teach all of the classics of Western civilization from a Christian perspective. So you teach the ancient Greeks and the Romans and medieval era, and you read the old literature and the old poetry, and study math and science and everything in that old Western Civ context.
You know what that sounds like to me? School.
But it's the way school was meant to be, not
so funny that-
not the modern communist propaganda version of school.
It's so funny because everything you just listed is like, wait, that's just like education, but now we had to like brand it. So
Yeah, well, you got to. I mean, you could just call it. Come learn to not be a communist, and learn how to vote in New York.
yeah. Learn how not to hate people and just be a good person.
Yeah,
A novel
exactly.
idea. Well, that's really cool that you do that. And I am so, I was just say humbled. I'm so honored to have a true educator in the mix.
It sounds like you feed homeless shelters. It's so cool. It's so cool that you do that, Jason.
That's
Just really cool, Jason, what you're doing.
that's so perfect for you. I just love that for you.
You do you, Jason.
So,
Wow.
oh man,
What have you been up to, Sean?
What have I been up to? Ooh, that's a good question. Okay, so I mean, on a personal note, I'm trying to get back on a gym program, which is, I got to tell you, really does make you feel better. I don't want to sound like Joe Rogan or Andrew Huberman or something, but it does. It makes you feel better. And that's the
what
end
about
of
the
my
Liver King?
The Liver King, I'm not a fan, and I'm gonna just really skip over that. But no, seriously, folks, I think I'm really happy. I'll confess to you both that I really like working with Lore TV, and I'm so freaking excited about all of the stuff that we're doing and seeing that people are really like, there is definitely a shift happening with young people really going, man, they're just so tired of all the garbage we've been fed and being locked out of the system, Hollywood especially. And like when we all grew up, there was just so much like independent filmmaking, independent thinking, and you could write a story or do a movie that celebrated freedom in America and history. And it's like all that's been shut out. And I think it's super cool that we're opening the door to that. And what's blown me away in the last few weeks is all of the talent, all of these hidden gems, especially these people that are like, they're kind of overdoing the Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and they like actually want to do real programming and films and series. And seeing those people coming into our world, and like our guest today, Chris, that pipeline of talent is, I don't know, that's given me a lot of motivation. What say you guys about that?
Go for it.
Okay, no, I think it's great. I'm really excited about the talent that we have, of course, but also, one of the things it feels like it's just this constant thorn in the flesh is trying to think of all the different stuff we post, how the algorithm will be pleased by it, right? Like it's got to be wide, it's got to be vertical for this format or horizontal for this format. And it's just a nightmare. Like I couldn't imagine trying to create a YouTube channel now with all those different, it's almost like it almost feels like you win the lottery if you post something and the algorithm blesses it. And you put all this work and effort into just making sure that the algorithm doesn't flag it in any way in which you don't possibly know. It's like this mystery Gnostic sort of knowledge, right? Like it's
Gnostic lottery pool.
Yeah, it's getting out of hand. And I'm saying this from someone who's done social media marketing for the past decade, and it's exhausting. So I'm really happy that we've built this platform for artists who are just don't want to worry about that and just want to focus on telling a good story and put it right before an audience, as Chris has done, as we'll get to. But real quick, because I don't want to leave our listeners hanging. Who have been following for the past at least 3 weeks. But there is an update to the South Park thing, and it's not going. Not going in a good direction. There's an update every week.
Oh, can we tease that and come back to it, or do you want to reveal it now?
Yeah, let's just get it out of the way. Let's just get it out of the way. Yeah. Okay. Matt Stone and Trey Parker said this merger. Speaking about the merger between Paramount and Skydance, is a complete crap show, and it's effing up South Park. We're at the studio working on new episodes, and we hope the fans get to see them somehow.
Oh no!
But it's just crazy. They already announced like a premiere date for July or August or whatever, and now that's up in the air. So anyway,
it's good to have a little update.
That's a good update.
I'll keep you guys posted.
Keep us posted
on South Park and what happens.
That's a good update. Hey, I think I hear the ghost of Eddie Van Halen, or is that Steve Stevens?
Steve Vai.
Oh, it's Steve Vai. See, I'm more of a Steve Stevens guy.
Yeah, I think I hear it too.
Do you hear it?
Ladies and gentlemen, it's that time again. It's time for Jason's Trivia Lesson.
All right.
I think I got a good one for you this week. So we all remember.
Finally.
We all remember June 27th, 1951, when CBS became the first. They first put a color TV broadcast out. Right. We all remember that. They put it out in the U.S. First one in the U.S. But the FCC immediately stepped in and said, you can't do that, because whatever color tech is developed has to also work on black and white TVs. So CBS had to scrap their entire tech development until December 1953, when the FCC finally said, okay, that color technology can be used because it also works on black and white television. Well, less than 3 weeks after the FCC ruled, on January 1st, 1954, the Rose Parade was the first universal broadcast in color, even though there were no color televisions for sale yet. Well, the question is... 6 months later, after color televisions went on for sale, what was the first color multi-season series that was broadcast? Do you know this one, Sean?
I do.
Okay.
Because I watched a lot of TV back then. Was Leave It to Beaver's LSD Stash.
LSD wasn't invented for 3 more years.
Oh, you got me on this. That was a test, by the way. That wasn't my real answer. That was just a test.
I'm just amazed Jason knew the date in which LSD was invented and was able to say 3 more years. Like that's his trivia knowledge is beyond all comprehension.
That's why Jason's a teacher's teacher.
Here's the real guess, though.
Okay, real guess.
Maybe. How to Raise Your Kids the Cold War Way.
Dropping cover.
Okay. Here's in all seriousness, I do want to be serious because we're treating this. This is a very serious question.
Very serious question.
This is the answer. I'm very confident in this answer. It was actually I Love Lucy and also 17 Other Men.
That one wasn't broadcast nationally, right? That was
Very
only locally. Very local.
Yeah.
So
Fire Island in Palm Springs. I think.
All right. Well, if you wait around until the end of the episode, I will tell you what the first full color multi-season series was that was broadcast in the United States. So
I thought you were going to go with another LSD joke with I Love Lucy. So
you can tell already.
I think you missed it.
I love Lucy D.
In the Sky with Diamonds.
Loose. Oh, see, you guys are good.
Oh,
I should have workshopped this before the episode.
Yeah, I love Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. That's good.
I Love Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. Did you write that down? I'm writing that down. Hey, should we introduce our guest?
We should. I want to introduce everybody to the creator of Safe Society that is funding now on FolkLOOR TV a drama immersive visual experience. Did I get that right? Chris Shimojima.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, man.
You can call him many things. That's definitely one of them.
Okay. Awesome. Well, welcome.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Welcome. You know, it's funny because we've had some nice people on this show, but this is the first time I'm a little nervous. I'm usually really comfortable around guests, but this time I'm like, we got Chris. I don't know. This is a big deal. So Chris, thanks for being on the show. And I want to ask you have such a great backdrop with this whole kind of New York, kind of Long Island City vibe. Is that a virtual backdrop or is that the real deal?
That's the real thing. That's the real thing with my real dog back there too.
No way. That is so nice. That is so nice.
What's the dog's name?
Kenny G.
That's so good.
That's awesome.
And it's not totally random. My wife's dad is a well-known saxophonist in Albania, and he's a huge. So, like the impetus. We were on our flight back with him. We were like, oh, what if we use that name for the dog?
Yeah, I have a Kenny G story, but it is not for this podcast, so I'm at let's see 8:04 New York time. I can tell you the story. Okay, well, say hi to Kenny G for us.
We'll do.
That's Kenny G.
Well, should we start by showing the trailer for the show?
Yeah, well, let's do this. I like that idea. So let's set it up a little bit. So I can't even remember how we found out about Chris, but we did, and we were just like, this guy is awesome. What he's doing is super cool on so many levels. So this trailer we're going to watch is basically what we are currently funding for Chris on Lore TV, and is expected to launch as long as all the funding goes well and people like you get on board. It would be September 1st, I think we should be launching, right? So let's check out the trailer and then we can talk about it after. This is the Safe Society trailer from Chris Shimojima. I like the keyboard sounds. Is that like the real?
I'm just telling the band.
We can avoid such dangers of inequality.
We here are in a position to save everyone.
Death tolls rise, cases climb, anti-vaxxers choosing selfishness.
Everyone in a mask, sanitizer dispensers at every corner.
Personalized to your microbiome.
Listen to the science.
Happy birthday to you.
6 feet apart, 6 feet apart, 6 feet.
5 times 6.
They need to learn as soon as possible how to become adults that play their part as conscientious citizens.
He's moving ahead to misinformation.
Unbalanced amount of unsanitary white flesh color.
Be the protectors, cyber peace. Be the protectors.
Stop crying, my eye!
We have the answers to solve the real dangers of climate catastrophe.
Happy birthday!
No more private part. No more private part.
If justice is the name, then it's good destruction.
Revolution is never pretty.
Yes, arms is up.
Wow. That's Chris. That is horrifyingly
I
brilliant.
love it so much.
It's really great. Obviously, let's get to the elephant in the room. There's a lot of AI involved in that,
yes.
but you did it in such a beautiful way with I believe actual voice actors, like a really talented voice acting cast, and then all the work that went into just the production of that sound design is incredible.
Yeah, listen, all the voice talent are real actors. I mean, I don't think it's gotten to the point where I want to replace it with AI actors yet. But in the actual audio drama, a lot of the minor parts were recorded by me, and then I would shift it with AI to just put it into different voices, since I needed to create a cast of hundreds versus just 20 that I hired.
Yeah. Well, real quick, we got a question. It says at the end of a sample of AI film moments at the end of the trailer. Is that referring to AI-induced dystopia, or are the film clips created via?
No, the
AI?
film clips were created via AI. And I do want to clarify that, when saying that, obviously it's Gen AI, but there are a lot of parts to that also. So what you're seeing in it is obviously not straight out of AI. It's been heavily processed, and there were effects added to it.
Yeah. You used it rightfully as a tool, I think, that allows for this sort of thing to be. This is exactly what I think the AI is going to do to fuel the indie film revolution. It's incredible. It's a great example of that. I'm honored that we're funding it on Lore. So started out one as a podcast,
right? So that's what the trailer was for, right? The trailer was, I put it out in tandem with the podcast because I needed some sort of visual way to present the material, and that was the best and easiest way to do it. Otherwise, creating something like that from scratch and casting it and all that would have been like another huge undertaking that just wasn't viable for the type of tiny production, which was the impetus for me wanting to do it as an audio drama to begin with. And then like I guess what I'm trying to do now with it is what I found is that putting it out as an audio drama was still a very niche kind of thing. Obviously we spend a lot of time listening to podcasts and so forth, but most of the times it's, really information driven or media and news driven. And the realm of audio storytelling is still a little bit of a tinier community, So to really expand the audience, what I'm doing with it now is adding visuals throughout the entire 3.5 hour full duration of the 11 episodes. And those are predominantly not going to be AI generated. A lot of it's going to be done through a program called Touch Designer, which is like, it's mainly used as like a live, tool in music concert settings to create abstract visuals on the fly. But I'm using it in ways that are, I'm routing the audio into it and having those visuals be audio reactive to the audio, and basically rendering that out in multiple little pieces and then compiling it myself and then splicing in like these little tidbits of AI generated imagery as well.
Yeah, and the captions are all individually created in After Effects, I think, according to your, which I do all the time. I love After Effects. I've been using it for a long time. That is an insane process.
I was not willing to listen. I was not willing to do it all by myself. So I was looking around for help for a while to just to help me like manually do it word by word. Because obviously, there are social media tools that can caption it in a fancy way, but I needed the full control over it.
That's right.
In order to like be able to manipulate it and position it the way I wanted. Yeah,
like essential graphics just ain't all there yet.
Right.
It's not there. And so like I just like when I saw that, I just got chills as to like the complexity of that. I knew exactly what you were doing too, because there's so many times where I edit social media videos or stuff. I hardly ever wind up, especially for a client, hardly ever wind up using the auto-generated captions because the flexibility on that is so limited in terms of transitions and stuff like that. So that is I just want the audience to realize the amount of time and complexity and individual editing that's going into produce this visual experiences is unlike anything other.
It's crazy. It's pretty crazy.
It's basically at the level of hand-drawn animation at that point.
Just to be clear for our audience members that are trying to recreate this using Opus Clip, keep trying because it'll I think obviously from the trailer you can tell the sound design is there, but one other thing you mentioned too in the trailer, and you can see the trailer on Lore and our socials and stuff, but you mentioned that you actually went and designed an entire like production process to be able to crank these out efficiently. Why don't you go through that?
You're talking specifically for the visualization, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So, I mean, I was looking to kind of produce something the way that Apple TV Plus did Calls, which is very much like it's an audio drama, but it's visualized so that you have something for your eyes to be doing at the same time, and just keeps your attention on the screen a little bit easier. And the easiest way that I found to reproduce that is to use the software called Touch Designer, which is used by a lot of musicians and visualists to create these oftentimes live graphics. But what I had to do on my end was really, in my case, was develop a bunch of different looks, and I guess you could call them systems, visual systems for various scenes. And I've broken them down into about 32 scenes across the entire 11 episodes or so. And sometimes they cycle back and forth and so forth. But the idea was that each scene, each environment pretty much corresponds to a specific style or specific location of the actual of the series. So I had to have someone help me design all that from scratch, because I don't really know the inner workings of creating the visual graphics. And the best way for him to do that was to actually design all that, and then teach me how to use it just enough that I could, play with the parameters, change the colors, change how much they're audio reactive, reposition the camera, and so forth. Determine if the camera was going to orbit around this graphic thing, determine how long the duration of the clip would be. And that was pretty much a several month process. I think before that point, I had gone through a bunch of different touch designer artists, and none of them, once they realized what it really entailed, they sort of backed out, or they had other commitments they had to get to. So like it was a very,
this Chris guy is crazy.
and honestly, I didn't have like a huge budget to kind of start pulling that off. And even though I caveated a lot of this in advance, they didn't really know, like, okay, like this is the level of detail that's sort of needed. And so that's why it came to the point where I found someone who was willing to help me at least create the systems and then teach me how to use it so that I could render all the pieces I need myself. So now it's like back to where I'm doing a lot of the producing of it, post-producing it myself.
It's phenomenal. Sean, you got anything?
Well, I was really curious about the story part of it, the story process, because I've only heard of, I think it's the first episode, but you rewind back to the 90s with the Rodney King incident, and there's just some really interesting jumping around the timeline, and which I thought was just super cool, the way that you've done it, the way you've crafted the story. Anything you think is kind of interesting you want to share with just how you got to the story, how you crafted this whole narrative?
Well, the 90s really, I mean, the flashback to the 90s in the first episode came about because I was looking to explore the way that this main character grows up. And a lot of the impetus of the story, in addition to the cultural angle on it, was just a broader tackling of the idea of how people are programmed from a young age. So I wanted to kind of go back into the 90s when this character was a kid to kind of see how his parents, and specifically his father, who's a fairly influential figure deep in the cultural scene, how someone like that and your parents can really teach you very specific values that you end up carrying with you throughout your entire adult life. And that's something that I sort of thought a lot about as I sort of head into that phase myself of like what exactly we're doing to our own children and how they are so susceptible at a very young age. And that was the real impetus. And where the series actually goes in the latter half of it is it starts to explore the ramifications on M, now an adult, his children, and how the latest cultural propaganda and ideologies getting pushed down can negatively impact that generation. And basically it's raising them all to be like pretty much activists, That's
right. I think you just did such a great job of that. In that moment, I'm thinking back at that particular scene, and like that's a really cool device to go back in time and sort of spotlight these genesis moments in someone's life where a parent had a conversation or someone said something. I think the way you did that was really smart. That's what I really like about what you're doing is you're not taking an obvious route on social commentary and kind of like exposing or uncovering what's going on today, especially coming out of the pandemic, all the mass kind of manipulation, the gaslighting, the truth bending, and all of that.
It definitely does go there, it goes there like starting from like I think episode 4 or 5. That's when like a few of the reviews kind of pointed out, whoa, okay, you went there. But I wanted to ground it definitely.
I think that's what's cool and what makes you different as a bigger message. You're grounding it. Like there's something really interesting about I mean, I think of a series like Bloodline. I don't know if any guys saw Bloodline on Netflix, but it's these older siblings and they're following them in their adult life, but then they rewind the tape to these moments in their childhood that are really critical moments that informed who they are. And these and some of them are really big traumatic events, and some of them these just really subtle conversations they had with mom or dad or a moment. And I just think you did a really good job of doing that without hammering.
That's interesting. And I haven't seen Bloodline, but it's actually an interesting device, right? It has to be done a very specific way, or otherwise you risk sort of explaining someone's current condition. Like you're almost like oversimplifying who they are in the present, because of like an abusive parent or something, or like a some like tragedy that happened in the past, right?
Yeah,
and I think reality is often much more complicated than that. So it's a very fine line to walk in terms of how much do you say you are the product of your upbringing, you know?
Yeah, you do a good job not doing it in a reductionist kind of way. It's very, it's tactful. So I can't wait to hear the rest of it. But I really zoomed in on that. Like, yeah, those little conversations that M has, and the fact we're going to follow M as he becomes an adult. So, what, you know, I mean, I guess you could talk a little bit about your own sort of view of the world, and you know how that informs your creative work, both with this project and also Alberto, which I know Jason saw. So I think I want to kind of pass the mic to Jason, and maybe I'll just do that right now, Jason, because you got to see that film, right?
Yeah. I went and watched it on Amazon Prime. Amazing. It was also on Tubi, and I thought, I wonder which one makes him more money, if I watch it on Tubi or Prime. Do you know the answer?
It's Tubi. Amazon Prime does not pay, like it's nothing.
Okay.
Tubi is any of those like AVOD stuff is better, but we're talking about like pennies here either way.
Okay.
So it's not it's not like a huge thing.
That's good to know. So go watch it on Tubi. It's called Alberto and the Concrete Jungle, and dude, it is a blast. It's so much fun. And what surprised me about it as I was watching, because it's broken up into chapters, is the storytelling is very subtle and very immersive in the way that you really start to go, man, is anything going to go right for this guy? And you start to like him, even though, he's got his flaws and his foibles, but you start to go, is anything ever going to go right for this guy? And you just build this really fun tension.
Like an absurd tension.
Should we play the trailer for it?
Yeah, play the trailer.
Yeah, let's do that.
All right.
To keep the balance, you must keep moving. Light like a feather.
You're that journalism with that last name. So Buenaventura, thank you.
You immerse yourself and get involved with many different cultures.
Sometimes it can lead to a big adventure.
Romania.
Will you stay?
Adventurers can't think like that. I love New York. I just knew one day I'd be done with it. Done with it. Done with it. Done with it.
Look, it's New York.
No!
Everyone plays by their own rules.
You don't think I'm leaving New York? Just wait. I'm getting out of here.
What's the password?
I'm trying to find her. You have to help me. Help me.
No.
Can we get another artist?
Can you get me alcohol?
Get to know our practices.
Everyone who does eventually joins.
Where do you have to keep going? Do you ever think about a nice home?
Yes. That is phenomenal, dude.
Thank you.
So that the moment that I knew that I was in the hands of a master storyteller is when the guy shows him the picture of himself, and he says, "This is, hey, what do you think of my picture? I would, and then they disagree on what to name the picture, and it's this perfect moment where you externalize what he thinks of himself versus what everybody else sees, and you realize I've been sucked into this guy's head, and I've started to believe what he says about himself, but he's not a trustworthy narrator of his own life. Like, it's that moment I was like, I am in the hands of a master storyteller. It was such a perfect moment, and then it delivers on the promise. So I really, really enjoyed it. What was the impetus for the idea for the movie?
Well, I guess like anything I do, it's always taken from some sort of cultural observation or personal happening to me that's relevant at the time. So this was back in like 2017, 2018 that I scripted Alberto and then produced it shortly after. And at that time, the predominant things that were happening were I had just my parents had just sold the New Jersey house that I had grown up in, and I'm the kind of person that gets very attached to specific locations and places. So I started feeling very rootless, and I didn't know where I belonged and where I was. Like, I still had a place here in New York, but I didn't really feel like I had a home. So that was like the one factor. The other thing is that I was aching to do some sort of a love letter to New York, and something that would also tackle my love for Indiana Jones, because I grew up watching like that stuff. I have a Raiders of the Lost Ark poster like over there, and I was trying to see if there was a modern day equivalent. So back around 2017, 2018, that was when everyone was really talking about like the upswing in digital nomads, like, starting to really become a viable lifestyle. So I was just wondering, like, is there a story around some kind of digital nomad who thinks he's a Indiana Jones, like modern day kind of Indiana Jones character, and ends up coming to a point where he's starting to feel that maybe this lifestyle is right for him, or maybe it's not, because he's kind of rootless, and maybe he wants those roots and somewhere to belong and some sort of community to belong to, though he's not sure. And that's sort of like, that was really the thing about it for me, is that this guy wants to go back on his adventurous ways, but he's constantly being trapped by New York at every corner, by these different groups of people in every borough that he has to go to. And through that process, he has to kind of come to some sort of new conclusion about himself and realize, like, is he missing something?
Well, there's something timeless about that story, but it also is exactly what everybody is wrestling with right now. I mean, everybody feels dislodged, and you really captured that. This guy thinks dislodging is going to be freedom, and so he keeps trying to say, no, I'm way better off, but
and the universe has a funny way of like trying to push you into something else when you least want it. And that was Now I was watching like a lot of Curb Your Enthusiasm too, so it was always this like this cosmic irony, like attacking this character from every corner. Like the more he pushes back against it, the more spiraling out of control he gets. And
now that you say that, I can totally see the Curb Your Enthusiasm, because each time the character in the next location is like a little bit crazier than the last. Like, it just keeps getting worse and worse for him. So, but I can also see, the way that you were using visuals, you were using text on screen, you were using quick music changes and audio, that it really was leading towards what you're doing in Safe Society too. Where because where everything, all the little details serve the story.
Yeah, and like, listen, like, I'm glad you point out like the audio stuff too, and the way audio works, because I do have a background in as a classical pianist, and I've always like said that like a lot of like the way I learned to structure things comes from like the way I used to have to analyze specific texts of music, and like how those themes would be interconnected and like shaped across and developed through a symphony or through a sonata or anything like that. And I guess like I've sort of taken it in my day-to-day life as a video editor. Not just, you don't really just do the video editing, but a lot of times like you're sort of laying the bed work through the soundscape as well. And that sort of has become a big part of the workflow for me, in terms of not just video editing, but audio editing. So it was almost like a natural next step for me to try to do something that was almost firstly an audio story,
Hey, Chris, I wanted to ask you, because the sound design is impeccable. I mean, I was just like, this guy, this is like, it blew me away. Were you totally self-taught? Were you doing it in Pro Tools? Give us a little backstory.
Yeah, listen. So again, as a video editor, you're always dealing with sound in some way. And just because of the background I have, I've always been, into the nuances of it and try to play with it in various ways. And I noticed that a lot of times, the movies I respond to have a certain rhythm to it and a way that they use soundtrack and music. So I came from it from that angle, and I guess I sort of taught myself from there. I had a little bit of Pro Tools background about 10 years ago, but I had to completely refresh myself, just in terms of the technical know-how of how to use it. But I was, again, I was sound designing in Premiere before that also.
Yeah.
And I will of course say that, any of the complex mixing of it, and additional sound work, I brought on someone to help me with that, as it was just too much for one person to take on and do it.
You make it all sound so easy when you talk about all this. It's amazing. Yeah, it's really cool. I got to see Alberto, and I'm really curious. And you don't have to reveal this if it's too inside, but I'm so curious. My instinct would say that Amazon Prime would pay more just because of the business model with the 50% on the transaction, but you're saying Tubi with the ad revenue model. How is that?
Yeah, I don't know the exact number breakdowns, but I'm just relaying what I learned dealing with the aggregator that I use, which is Indie Rights, and they were the ones who kind of pointed that out to me. So I wouldn't be able to give a good breakdown.
Did you?
But I think something about Amazon Prime, they keep most of it, or they. I don't know. It only gives you
it's rivers of nickels and dimes, I'd imagine. Yeah. And what did you do the distribution on your own? Did you have an agency, or how did you get your Tubi and Amazon deals?
So coming off a few of the festivals, we were eager to try to get it around to some distributors and see what we could find. It just couldn't get any significant traction at that point, and this was end of 2020, and no one was really looking. The industry was starting to be a bit of a mess. We did go to two distributors, and the deals that they presented were not what we wanted. And it was a little bit of money, but it was the trade-off is that you kind of lose control over the project, and they take exclusive rights on it, and then all the marketing is you still have to do it yourself anyways. And so it was the kind of thing where I ultimately decided it was better to just, I never did it to try to make money. It was just, I wanted to make a feature film, and I was passionate about a specific story. So the most important thing to me was just getting it out on the platforms that I wanted to. And the aggregators seem to be the best option. And they don't take, they don't keep any all that revenue from viewership. That all goes to you when you're dealing with the aggregators.
Yeah. If you were to do it different all over again, knowing what you know, would you do anything different on the production or distribution or marketing side of that film?
No, because I think a lot of it is almost just it comes with the territory. I think maybe it's tough to say. I don't have any regrets of following the specific process that we did. And it's just that, things that are playing at Sundance are not selling, and it's such a complicated landscape now.
Yeah. What's in your own words, how would you what excites you about Safe Society? As you think of, especially as this kind of doing this new iteration, which I think we're calling the captioned cuts, or
the caption cut. Yeah. I was looking for a good way to describe it, because I didn't want to just say it's a visualization of it, because that sort of implies that, maybe I'm actually doing I'm actually like shooting the scenes in some ways or something like that, which I'm not. It's all like, it's much more abstract than that. But I guess like the thing that's really exciting about it to me is that it's kind of like a two-pronged approach where it's letting your imagination work because it's not feeding you all the visual information, but at the same time it's keeping your eyes glued to the screen with something for you to look at. And it's kind of like, you know, when my wife was listening to the audio drama version of Safe Society at first, it was fine, like, you know, just on headphones, but, you know, she would get sidetracked and she'd be like looking around and her eyes would be paying attention to so many other things. But when she was reading the transcript along with it, it was that much easier to actually follow the story and pay attention to it. So something clicked in my head and I was like, well, why don't we just give people the opportunity to follow it that way with the actual captioning on screen and some sort of visual glue and texture to. It
kind of seems similar to the case that people make about the difference between an audiobook and reading a book. You know, reading the book does open up a whole new layer and dimension of imagination, and you fill in those gaps. And would you say that's kind of similar in this?
It is, I guess. Like, and the thing with reading a book too is that it does also give your eyes something to focus on, right? So it's kind of that's kind of what I was getting at, is because we are still a very visual, you know, society. And we did grow up like, you know, learning storytelling through visuals. You know, I think we still say, oh, go watch this thing, right? That's the predominant way of experiencing stories. And reading books is kind of visual in the sense that your eyes have to be doing something in order to process it, you know? So that's what I was trying to do with the captioning of it, for sure.
Yeah. Could you see yourself doing an actual full-blown TV series after this?
I would love to. Like that was still always the game plan. Like the script started as a feature film script. You know, this was back 2022, 2023, when I was scripting it. And I spent about half a year with a producing partner trying to get it into the right hands, and we just could not get past the right gatekeepers to get it. There were a few names that we got to, and they just, there was just money issues, or they just weren't ultimately interested. So it was such a game, and I was just like, if it's going to take like a name actor to be able to produce it, like in the way I want to, then I just need to find another way to tell it, and just get the story out sooner than later. That said, if there were a way now, like if some funding magically came in, or like some, you know, production company opened up that wanted to make it into a film, I totally want to do it.
Marcus and I were talking earlier today, and we were just really blown away at you have a really star-studded cast. I mean, I know Marcus, right? We were like, this isn't just some AI thing. There's
you have real actors.
Yeah.
Lawrence Fishburne's son, is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, Langston Fishburne.
Langston Fishburne is one of them. And then what else? Who else was on there?
Marlene Angelides. She actually has a background as a pop star, and she still does a lot of music work. But she came in to play the narrator. We have Jasmine Ashanti, Eric Mark, who was in Eva Longoria's directorial movie a few years ago, and Zach Siegel, who is in a few upcoming projects that with an interesting director attached to it as well. So,
and they've been on some big series and shows, right? I was reading some of the credits. There's a pretty heavy bag of IMDb credits there.
Yeah. And that's it was fun. It's funny working with them because it's such a diverse group, and I had such a different process working with each one. For example, Zach, since he's, he lives in New York, we decided the best way, since it was such a big part, he plays M, the main character. The best way was for him to come to my apartment and record the entire thing in a series of 5 or 6 2-hour sessions, like once a week or so. I had a portable audio booth set up just in my kitchen, where I put like a mic in there, and then so he was sitting in there, and I was like, "Is it too hot?" He was like, "No, it's all good." but it was hot in there for me because I had to go in there a few times. It was pretty. He was a trooper for sticking it through. And I would just like sit on the outside and just give him notes from the outside saying, okay, do this line again, do this one again. And I would just like sit there with these headphones on and my little Zoom recorder, and like just everything was routed in there. So that's what it was for him. For Marlene, who was the narrator, since she had her own in-home audio setup and she does voiceovers often, she recorded everything, remotely with me, and we would just get on, I think, either Zoom or Google Meets, and I would just, be directing her through that. With Langston and Eric and Jasmine, they were not in New York, so I just looked around for the best. And this was a learning process because I did not pick the best ones, but I looked around for good recording studios in their area, and I just booked like a few sessions for them. Langston, I think we did two days. Was it one? I think it was 2 different days, and it was like 3 hours on each one or something. Jasmine came in for like 3 hours. Eric came in for like 2 days and did like 3 hours here and there. So it was interesting process.
Did everybody feel like they're really on board with the subject matter and what you're doing here in the commentary, or was it kind of more hands off?
Yeah, listen. Like I tried not to like push it too much, just to not ruffle any feathers. So like it was really just in the initial conversations with people. If they were willing to talk about it, then we engaged with it a little bit more. So yes, like a few of the main cast did talk to me about like their interest in the subject matter, and they were like, "Hey, this is something I really see happening. I totally see where you're coming from. These are divisive times we're living in. Blah 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 blah." So they were definitely on board with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's phenomenal. I think I'm super excited to see it produced and come to fruition. I think Jason has a trivia answer for us now.
I do.
Right. Trivia answer.
I do. So the question was about the first full color multi-season series that was ever broadcast on television. And the answer is The Wonderful, Wonderful World of Disney.
Oh, wow.
Of course it was.
It was. So October 1954, when it first launched, they almost immediately changed the name, but it was called Disneyland when they first launched it. And then they almost immediately changed it to The Wonderful World of Disney. There were almost no color televisions yet in people's houses. And RCA and Disney worked together to push the purchase of color televisions so that they could watch it. So it was the first full series, multi-season series that was broadcast entirely in color. It was Disney pushing the technology as normal.
Wow. Yeah. I can't believe nobody got that, but that was a good one. That was a really good one.
Yeah, that was a great one.
Do you go ahead? I'm sorry for cutting you off, Marcus.
No. I was just gonna say, I just want to before we go to our band song, I really wanted to encourage people who are watching this could go to FolkLOOR.tv, buy as much loot as you possibly can, and put it towards Safe Society. You will not be disappointed. It's incredible. That we've been just given this project an opportunity to fund it. And I really thank you, Chris, for trusting us with it.
Of course, guys. It's my pleasure. And thank you so much for giving me the opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you say, Sean?
Well, I was going to just remind everybody to go to FolkLOOR.tv and watch also the artist journeys. We've put up, I think, do we have an artist? Yeah, we have an artist journey because that piece, we didn't have time to show it on the podcast today, but you talked a little bit about it, Chris. It's a really cool kind of behind the scenes of your process, especially for our audience members that are filmmakers and you kind of want to get a deeper dive into how Chris goes about it. It's a really great piece. So I did want to say, I just want to squeeze this in because I'm noticing a pattern in our mail that's coming in. Jason's got a lot of fans. I was going to read a few letters, but I'm going to squeeze in one.
Okay.
One letter. This was a Dear Lore folks. It's always nice. I like that. I signed up thinking Lore was some kind of outdoor network, like Lore, LURE TV, as in like trout enthusiasts. Imagine my surprise. Imagine my surprise when I tuned into FolkLOOR and heard Jason talking about copyright law, time loop, communism, and Queen Latifah. I'm hooked. Dolores from Cathedral City, California. Thank you, Dolores.
Well, thanks for listening, Dolores. And anytime Queen Latifah comes up, it's a good day, in my opinion. So
yeah.
All right, tell us about the band's inspiration today.
So the band's inspiration this time around is dark wave Britpop. Right? So they made us a dark wave Britpop about the topics of today's episode. So
if something's ever going to break this band, it could be this.
There's lyrics in this one, right?
There it is. Eventually, I guess.
Yeah. I'm just waiting for Peter Murphy to come in here.
It's a 4-minute long song.
Wow, it's a dramatic intro.
Static hum and a pixelated grin. Neon lights pulse where truth wears thin. Algorithms whisper in the velvet glow, guiding us to places we didn't know. Marching in the rose parade of screens, color television selling diamond dreams. Lucy in the sky, but she's out of frame, while the media spins its endless game.
Ooh, call out for Kenny G here. Coming up. Ooh. Wait for it.
Kenny G, the dog barks at the blue. His shadow on the wall is a deeper hue. The algorithm Shannon perfect rhyme. Our lives rewritten by the hands of time.
Finally getting to the chorus, huh?
It's the most Brit wave thing I've ever heard.
Finally, something I can dance to. This is
Marching in the rose parade of screens, color television selling diamond dreams. Lucy in the sky, but she's out of frame, while the media
kind of waiting for the Brit part of this song.
I know. When does it become
dark wave
Britpop? I don't know.
really? Got the dark wave down. Fuego. I'm not hearing any Oasis or FolkLOOR.
The good they promise hides the strings, a gilded cage where the algorithm sings. I see it all, but I can't look away. Caught in the parade on this endless day.
All right, guys. Thanks everybody for joining us on this
That
podcast.
doesn't leave you on a high note. I don't know what will.
Yeah, it's definitely not a high note.
They really put the dark and dark wave on that one.
Yeah, they did.
Let's talk
All right,
to the
thanks
band
everybody
after.
for joining us. Yeah, thanks everybody for joining us on Lore TV. We really appreciate you guys on the FolkLOOR podcast. So be sure to go and subscribe to Lore TV, or go there, buy a bunch of loot, fund Chris Shimojima's project. I don't think any of us are going to be disappointed with this thing. It's a true work of art in every way. So thanks, Chris, for joining us.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks for having me, guys.